Well, hello, everybody, and happy Monday. I hope you're having a great day already. Thank you for tuning in to Act 3 on CHLY 101.7 FM. I'm Kathy Holmes and delighted to be your host. With me in my Zoom booth, I have a very special person. Her name is Christina Rysack. She's with People for a Healthy Community on Gabriola Island. I'm going to find out just what she's doing over on the rock. Hey, how are you doing, Christina?
I'm doing great, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I know this is your first interview as the new executive director for People for a Healthy Community. Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about who you are and what you do?
So, well, my name is Christina, and I'm the executive director for People on Healthy Community. And I am a nurse by training, and so that really sort of set me up well for doing some of the work that we do here. We're the only social services organization on Gabriola. And so we offer a variety of programs. I came to this from government, so it's quite a shift
Yeah.
from moving from a very highly organized institution to a not-for-profit charitable organization that's quite small. So it's been quite a learning curve, but I'm very excited to be here.
Well, already you've made a significant difference to those that live on the island. There has been some really terrific initiatives that you've expanded and some new things that you're even doing with the building. And so, why don't you give us an understanding? I mean, People for Healthy Communities, like you said, is the only social services agency on the Rock, but it is also connected to the people in a way that is so beautiful and so uplifting for everyone who lives there. Tell us a little bit about some of your initiatives.
So, and I would like to apologize. It's busy here, and I'm in a office that it's an old farmhouse, and so the walls seem to be quite thin.
Yeah.
So if there's background noise, I'm really sorry. Um, some of the things that well, we are so being the only social service organization, we run the food bank. And in that, we have changed our hours. So when I first came, it wasn't as accessible for those people who are working because it was closed before people came across from the ferry if they were working in Nanaimo. And so now we have Thursday evening where people have come um, and are able to get their groceries. As we know, the cost of food and the cost of living has increased even since I've come here. And so our numbers have moved from, we were servicing about 120 families to 260 within the past year. So,
Wow.
um,
That's a
yeah.
huge transition for people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so some of the ways that we've had to adjust, I've had to adjust quickly is finding other sources of food, finding other ways that we can get more donations, monetary donations so that we can purchase more food. Their big gaps are, proteins. It's really hard to get proteins for people. And so we get lots of vegetables through our recovery program. We've increased our relationship with Loaves and Fishes, the food bank on Nanaimo, and they're a bit of a hub for all of the food banks across on the island, on the north central island. Um, yeah, and so the other thing we've done in our outreach program is we've really connected to building a warming center for this past winter. Now, thankfully, the winter didn't get as cold as what we had anticipated, but if it did, then we had a lot of learning from that, and we'll probably end up doing it again next year, but hopefully with some of the learning. And then going forward, I'd like to, there's gaps around services for children and youth. And so my next phase is working with our community partners to increase programs, services, opportunities, peer support for our children, youth, and families.
Now, I've worked for many years actually with people for healthy communities in various different roles that I've carried. And what I noticed the first time of going back into your office, it had been a while since I'd been visiting, and I noticed you did a really wonderful renovation. You made it so that it's more visible. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, um, when I first arrived as well, there was one office space that I was in that was a little darker and a little dingier, and it was I realized the inequity at the time of who's in one office, and there were seven people in another office. So over the past holiday season, where we had a lot of people around. We were able to paint and switch our offices around. So now we have a program office, and about 7 or 8 people come and go in that office. And we'd have a lot of synergy now, where people are working together better. The programs were historically have been a little more siloed, which is what we might tend to do when we're always relying on different grants.
Yeah, yeah.
Where now let's figure out how we can work together so that we can get the biggest bang for the money that we do get from our grantors and from our donors.
One of the things that I noticed when I was there too is that there were several older folks that were popping in to get some
Yes.
really terrific support, not only for food security, but they were having some supports with, filling out forms and trying to get identification and things like that. Is that something you've always done, or is that fairly new in the last few months that you've been doing with the team?
Well, I mean, I think so if I could go back a little bit,
Yeah,
how People for Healthy Community started was somebody who realized that somebody needed support, or women needed support as victims of domestic violence. And sometimes when they leave their homes, they lose their ID, they lose, resources, they lose access to things. And so we've always started with as a resource center for people between um, anybody who comes in, and we have access to a computer or phone, and we help with the tax clinics. There's the Paisley Place, which is a new housing complex on Gabriola, is just opening up. It's 24 unit rentals, which is really great for Gabriola, but we've been helping people with the application process because it is a little bit complex. And so, yes, we help people with applications. If somebody doesn't have a mailing address, they use our offices for their mail. And it is something that we've always done. We've had different iterations of it.
sure.
But right now, anybody who walks through the door, we try and help with really connecting to what they need between income or housing or food or all of the sort of the social services that one might be able to get if they walk through a municipality per se, in the city, but we don't have that here. So we seem to fill that void.
Well, I'm not sure what the population is exactly on Gabriola, but I think it's around 1,000 people or so live there year round. Is that right?
4,500
Oh,
actually live.
4,500 live year round.
Yeah, and it bumps up to almost 10,000 over the summer
Wow. Wow. And you really are the only game in town.
for this type of thing.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you see a rise in the summer when people come back to their cottages, their homes? Do you see your services increasing quite regularly, or does it stay relatively stable throughout the year?
It does stay relatively stable. The people that are coming and going are usually not those who one would say are in that much of a need of social services.
Sure.
They tend to have more resources available to them, and so we do see an increase in our volunteer rate. So a lot of people who come back. We also, and that's one thing that we're really trying to address is social isolation. So
Yes.
when people do come back and seniors or those older adults sometimes who've retired, we have a large volunteer pool and we have a volunteer coordinator. Oh, that's something that I brought in, is more support and wraparound for our volunteers, so that they also not only help us, but we help them in return, where we have teams together and we're building a really nice community of volunteers coming to the organization. And that's something that over the summer we do see an increase in. And moving we do the Meals on Wheels program as well. So a lot of um people like to come back and cook. And so they do cooking, and we have a soup social. We probably provide a meal to somebody in the community at least, I think, yeah, we have every day except for Thursdays where we cook. Nope, every day. Sorry.
That's okay. I mean, you've got so much movement that's happening, so many wonderful things that are transpiring at PHC. And I know that there's a building that's beside you that's known as the Commons. And but for many of us who live on the mainland part of Vancouver Island, we always thought that the Commons and PHC were sort of synergy. They're sort of together. Is that the case, or are they two separate? And how does the Commons help support people that are living on Gabriola?
So I just recently learned actually the history, a bit of the history of the Commons and PHC. When we came together, okay, so about 30 years ago, a group of people, this was a farmland,
Hmm.
and the owner wanted to sell it to a group of people that wanted to build seniors complex, gardens, agriculture, and support people for a healthy community. And so the three organizations came together to help create the structure of the commons. It's very flat. It's a when it was sold, it was required to be remain in perpetuity to support the community of Gabriola in a way that's environmentally sustainable and supports agriculture.
Yes.
So the Food Depot, says the food bank, in terms of part of the cycle of the of sustainability of agriculture, is embedded in there. And so over time, there's been much more of a distinction because PHC has shifted from solely the food bank to broadening our scope to supporting seniors and, you know, and then our mental health and outreach services. And the Commons is really focusing on supporting still having gardens in the back, and it's land for anybody to use at any time. They have a kitchen and they have a workshop and they have a goat barn that nobody uses, but there's different structures. So how we work together is it's now a landlord tenant
Agreement? Sure.
situation,
Yeah.
agreement, arrangement. So they basically are our landlords, and we provide service there for participants who come, and so they really want us to we want we are distinct organizations now, particularly because we've PHC has shifted our mandate, and the Commons really wants to maintain their focus on supporting everyone in the community in a way that is non-exclusive.
I completely understand that. I mean, there's something wonderful about having a place for everyone to be. Um,
Hmm.
I have found that as in being present in your facility, I felt very welcome. And I think that anyone who comes into PHC really does feel the warmth and the care that you have for anyone who comes through. And I do notice as well that, the front of the community used to have this big huge bush kind of in front of it. It's really difficult to sort of see, where you guys were. You almost were hidden
Yeah.
behind it. In my last visit, I saw that that was completely gone. To my relief, actually, it made it a little bit easier to find you. And so I'm wondering if you have plans for what that land and what PHC is going to become in the next coming few years.
Well, we are bursting at the seams, so we do need to. This farmhouse is not going to probably hold us. So we are looking for ways and opportunities to build. And we've been in a preliminary discussion to see if there's another spot on the commons that we can build on, as well as working. We've been also talking to the health center because health and social services sometimes go hand in hand. And so our next real steps is going ideally going to the community and asking, here's our idea of what we think the community needs. Here's what I've seen through some of the gaps in terms of having a gathering place, a place for people to come and feel warm and welcome. And while we do that, our space is quite small.
Yes, yeah,
So
for sure.
really, opening it up. And so that hedge was cut down. That again is was the Commons idea. The hedges that were put in 30 years ago were, only this big,
Yeah, of course they were small and they've grown.
and and nobody's really kind of really paid attention to how they've been growing, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, we're boxed in. So we do actually, so one of our other major programs is our relationship with the school, and so we bring every Friday the kids, school kids are across the street, and
Mhm.
they walk over and they spend time in our garden, and that's to really do food literacy, and teaching what's a what's a broccoli,
Hmm.
and what's kale, and what does it taste like, so that not because not everybody, not all children have that exposure or that understanding. So really trying to build, resiliency and education also for the kids, and we have a lot of programs that we work very closely with the kids. So the hedge coming down was also to help ease bringing the kids over too.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I love the idea about kids learning food literacy. When I
Yeah.
when I was growing up, we certainly didn't have the luxury of having a lot of vegetables unless we grew them in our yard. But so many people, if they especially right now with the economy being the way it is, unfortunately, vegetables can be quite expensive. And so for kids to learn where their food is coming from becomes so important, right? There's
Mm,
a new respect and a new value for the food that they're eating. And when I was there as well, I saw that I think you guys had four classes coming through in that
yeah.
day, which to me was outstanding to see that kind of participation from the school, to
Yeah.
come across and see that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. We have so all seven divisions come. So we have seven divisions, which um are it's some are double classes. So it's not all, it's from grade kindergarten to grade seven, and so there's combined divisions. And we do have this currently a grade five class that the teacher is always asking, so is the garden available, because it really calms the kids too.
Yeah.
So there's a real they can just go, they can run around, be in nature,
Mm.
and do what they need. But also there's a she just finds there's a real shift in the kids by the time Friday comes, when they come to the garden, hang out with our wonderful team there, and then they come back feeling quite in a very different place. And so I think, that soft skill, those other learned kind of social emotional regulation that happens,
Mm.
I think is also something that we really enjoy and are benefiting our kids.
I'm curious if there's a plan to expand that somehow. I know that kids come off the island to go to high school on the mainland. I believe that's true. Is there any future plan of maybe having a high school moved over so that you'll get the full gamut, or no? Or would you know
I
that?
I mean, I think that the size, like we have 150 kids in the school, and then I know there's quite a few that are homeschooled. So I'm thinking, on island, regular people, we probably might have 200 kids
That's about right.
between
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so. when the class that's graduates grade 7 to grade 8, it might be about 15 or 20.
Right.
So then you multiply that by five, we have maybe 100 or 80 kids that go across, which isn't big enough
Understood.
for high school. So
Yeah.
they'll always have to go across. What I had recommended, though, or I thought that maybe we could look at is some of the core classes. Why
Mhm.
not have, an auxiliary again in this
I
additional
love that.
space, a classroom that those kids can do the basics, math. If everybody's in math and reading and English and some of the core curriculum that they can do together, and then any extracurricular stuff related to arts or music or drama or sports, they then could go across for that. And so they still stay with their friends and peers because NDSS, the Nanaimo High School, is enormous,
It really is.
and coming from a very small town, going there, there's a quite a, I've heard there are a few kids that still are that prefer to be homeschooled because it's just too overwhelming.
Understood. And every kid learns so differently. I spent
Yeah,
35 years in education and I really do notice that not there isn't really a one-stop shop for children. There needs to be or young people, there really needs to
yeah,
be some options out there for them because not everyone learns the same.
yeah.
And I'm taking that now to, your role, you've sort of taken on from being from in nursing to moving into an executive director role where you're overseeing programs. How far out of your realm of nursing has that been for you? Like,
Oh,
are you seeing a connection
no,
in this way or
sorry.
what's that? Sorry.
It's okay. My trajectory, my nursing
Yeah,
career, so it has always been community care. And then I was teaching for a while, health promotion and
yeah, yeah.
population health. And then I went into public health and community development, and I worked really closely with the community health center in Ontario, where we were doing the drug strategy. So there was, again, opioid crisis was going on in the community that I was at, and so we created a fulsome drug strategy. We created I did a coalition of health and wellness providers to come together to talk to address to again to have this connection for every again it's the silos. So if we all are working with the same people but those people have to go to different places to get their needs met, why not bring everybody together? So that's the way that I practiced my nursing. I was in public health and health promotion, population health and community development for over a decade. So coming here, when I came to BC 5 years ago, I was at PHSA and I was working in this with BC CDC, which is the public health arm. Again, it wasn't quite community development. And then I was in a different role completely in doing risk, which was I learned a lot about legal frameworks and risk and stuff. But then when I was really finding myself more remote than working with people, and my thing is working with people, then coming to PHC, like when the opportunity came through, and I thought, oh my goodness, I get to work with people again. I jumped at it, and it matched my skill and my training and my career development. So while health and well-being has always been part of my education, and it's what I did my master's in, it's what I started my PhD in as well as community development and social building social capacity with people.
Well, I met you a few months ago, and it's been one of the greatest gifts that I've received. You've just been so good for the community. I'm so glad that you're here. I'm going to take a quick station identification, and we're going to come back and we're going to talk a lot more about PHC. If you've just tuned in, you're listening to Act 3 on CHLY 101.7 FM right here in beautiful Nanaimo, looking after all the way down to almost Duncan, all the way up to almost Courtney and over to the Sunshine Coast. So we are super glad that you've tuned in from wherever expert that you are. I'm hoping that you're not in your car driving, but if you are, maybe pull over in about 2 or 3 minutes to grab a piece of paper and a pen. Make sure that you have it available, whether you're at home listening at the office or whether or not you're in your car, so that we might get that information to you and you can find out more about PHC. A couple other things I want to shout out too. It's coming up soon. I know it's 6 months away, but I'm talking about it every chance I get. Glitter 2026 is going to be held on September the 12th. It is going to be an evening that you can never forget. There are incredible performers coming. All of the money that's raised that night is going to the foundry. And since my guest and I are talking also about youth, or we have started to in this part of or in the earlier part of our conversation, this is a great way that youth are getting supported within the community. So make sure you mark your calendar. Tickets will be available coming up real soon. Again, please watch our latest episode of Act 3 on Rogers Television and check us out on iHeartRadio, Spotify, or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. But right now, here on the Zoom booth at CHLY 101.7 FM, I have my friend Christina Rasjic. She is with People for a Healthy Community. Welcome back, my friend. I
Thank you.
I am so I'm so enamored by what PHC does because, the community itself is a small community. It's a very tightly knit community. And probably a decade ago, when I first started working alongside PHC, the people on the island were very comfortable with the fact that they could take care of themselves. They wanted to take care of themselves, and they wanted to really show how they were different from Nanaimo in every way. Over the years, I saw the community develop and develop and develop, including having a health center. PHC was at the forefront of getting that health center together. And it's really now serving the community in such a beautiful way. And really, anyone who is there on a permanent basis feels the compassion and the empathy and the kindness that comes from PHC. I can only assume that's another reason that drew you to coming to this work. Clearly, your staff is incredibly warm, uh, really doing some impressive work. What's your favorite thing about being where you are right now in this stage of your career?
Um, oh, that's a very good question. My favorite thing is I'm been able to it's culminate or consolidate. It's like all of my experience over my years of nursing, of pediatric. Like I've had a very wide range of experience as a nurse. I'm more of a generalist than where everybody's becoming more specialist. I've always been a
Mhm.
generalist.
Yeah.
And so what I'm able to do is draw on each of the skills that I've learned over my career. And it's kind of like um, it's kind of like a consolidation of all of that. And the relationships I'm building even more so with our community partners, with you, with so many people that I didn't know were part of the community, but we how the synergy continues to build. It's usually I have a conversation with somebody who then has another conversation, and then we now have a link in, and then somebody has come and has donated something or is like, hey, this is a great program, let's work together. For example, is our homeschool kids. They weren't getting access to the garden program, and
Oh,
so we have a relationship with a farmer, um, Good Earth Farm, and they not Good Earth, I'm sorry, wishful thinking. And they have said, okay, well, we'll help teach those homeschool kids once a week and to come over. So we facilitated that dialogue. And now we have a new program testing out, working with the homeschool kids, going to a farm to learn their food literacy as well. And
I
so,
love that.
yeah,
My grandchildren are they go to public school for the first 2 or 3 years of their life, and then it's the rest is homeschool. And so
okay.
when I hear that there's programs like that available, I'm just so inspired.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
And the kids
Yeah.
love it.
They love it. And then it's a win-win because they also end up picking proper weeds and not just mini plants, but they help out with the garden as well. And so um
Wow.
yeah. Yeah, so that's brand new. It's just starting and we have some we have some really neat community members that normally wouldn't have interfaced with PHC that now are. So that's it's a nice win.
Absolutely. Do you actually live on Gabriola or do you
I
commute?
do, yes.
Yeah.
No, I'm yeah, I moved here about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Um and I had always known about PHC, but it was kind of um not as prevalent and maybe because I just needed to access the services. And so but I knew about the health center
Yes.
because I was on the board at the health center actually. And then I heard how we could work together, the health center and PHC. And yeah, it just so happened the timing, I was ready to change where I was at and wanted to find something here. So and being a part of the community, I can see well, I can see where the gaps are.
Yes.
I can see the geography of it. So,
Yes.
Gabriel is saying, you saying that we want to do our own thing, and it's like, well, yes, and we really are remote because the only thing that we have is, between us and a ferry to get to a larger center. And so there's no bus system. We had to create our own bus system. And even then, there's a lot of the way that it was built, there's a lot of roads that go in behind places that many people can be quite isolated.
Absolutely.
And so we're really trying to bring our neighborhoods together and providing resources to neighbors. So, and our theme is neighbors helping neighbors, because that's what PHC is all about. We don't need to do it all,
Wonderful that
but
you're trying to do as much that you can in such a really brilliant way. And I want to be clear when I said that you wanted to be isolated, to separate from that. Most islands that are along Vancouver Island and anywhere else, they really do love that autonomy. It's one of the reasons why people decide to move off any mainland, whether it's,
yeah.
Big Rock or whether it's Vancouver coming to the island, people make choices to live a lifestyle that comes very uniquely with island life. And so, it is quite normal for people to they want to be self-reliant. And I do notice that Gabrielans have found a way to do that and still access resources when they need to in other ways, right?
Hmm.
I think as well, one of the best things that's happened to the island is a medical center because you're quite right. With if the ferries are not running, if it's a storm, if it's just the end of the shift, if it's, there's so many reasons. And if something happens to somebody when they're living in a more rural and remote environment, it is not easy to get resources quickly or easily.
Hmm.
So, you've built in as much as you can or as much as a beginning. But once in a while, you still are going to rely on other resources to help you out. What are some of the things that you find that you really need right now? And how can our listeners participate in supporting you in a way that really helps to sustain the incredible work that you're already doing and help expand other thoughts moving forward?
What do I need? Um,
What would be on your wish list?
oh my, I think for me it would be sustainable funding.
Yeah, of course, of course.
I mean, we rely so much on donations, and granting, and for me to do planning and future thinking, with an unstable funding base,
Yeah.
it creates such uncertainty. And so, I'm always keeping my hoping that I can predict and project and get the right grants in order for you to move forward. But so for me, I need, I need a stable funding base. I need more room.
Yeah.
And because I'd like to hire more people to
Yeah.
do more work.
Yeah, of course.
Um
Of course.
I really would like to have somebody in our child and youth and family coordination support, understanding the needs of the community. I know I've heard and there's a lot of, again, I listen and I have a lot of conversations, and when I hear the gaps, so the gaps really are our services. I think traditionally this has been more of a retirement community, and the demographic over the past 3 years has changed tremendously. There are far more children, there are far more youth,
Yeah.
and we do have the Hope Center, which is a children and youth not funding, a children and youth support center that is that is fee for service, as well as it's um childcare,
Mhm.
but not so for me. I'm looking at um, kids who might identify sort of non-normative identification of their
Sure.
gender, that there some support within them to be able to think about, how they communicate that, or how they feel in their body, and those types of things, as well as just a place to hang out.
Yeah.
There is no programming for youth between 12 and 18 on the island.
Wow.
um, from sports and activities, like we have 16 plus, so or 18 plus, and or up to 12, and so really between 12 and 16.
That's your missing
um
middle kind of
we
group. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and that's when I got into trouble, when I mean I,
Me
you know
too. In all fairness, if you're, I moved out really young. I thought I knew everything at that age. And,
yeah,
looking back, I recognize the ill of my ways. Even though my mother is no longer with us, I apologize to her all the time as I remember just that period of life, right?
yeah.
Trying to figure out who you are. We at the station ID break, I mentioned for people to go grab a piece of paper and a pen. So I wonder now that they've done that, whether or not you could please tell people how can they find out more about PHC and the supports that you might be doing and need moving forward. Do you have a
Well,
website
we
or
do have a website.
yeah?
It's www.phcgabriola.org,
Okay.
or if you just Google People for a Healthy Community, it comes up. Um, I mean, that's our best the best way. You can take a look on our website if you want to call. Um, we have a main line, but it's not always, it really is used for people, just asking particular questions. So,
It's the best thing to do
and
is for have people call you or not call you, but go to your
go
website.
to the website and we have, info at phcgabriola.org, and we can send all the information that you need.
So info at phc dot Gabriel.
Gabriola.org.
Okay, perfect. I'll make sure that that's part for those who are watching us on YouTube. I'll make sure that that's in the chat box for everyone to be able to look at as well. When I was there, I caught myself in awe for lots of reasons, but one of my favorite things of our visit was learning that no food went to waste and that you were creating a project where dogs could be healthy as well. And I was a mom of two Jack Russells. I adored my dogs, and I always wanted for them to have the best possible food that they could get. Tell us a little bit about your dog food program. I love it. I think it's such a great idea.
Well, sometimes we do have food that we can't give out back to people because of the labeling, and because we're unsure of what it actually is. It's ends of meat. So we do take everything that comes from Nesters. So Nesters is a food recovery, and we take everything, and then it's up to us to sort it. And we sort it for either animal food, compost, um, and preserves, or And yes, dog food. So if we have proteins that we can cook up and blend up, and we extra kale or vegetables, whatever dogs can eat. I'm not the dog food person.
Yeah,
Would
I
be
know, I
somebody else
know.
who makes it, and she used to make it as her she used to be involved in grooming dogs and stuff, and she knows how to make dog food. And so we get patties, and it's by donation, so people can come in and get their dog food that we recommend. You get, I think, 10 1 pound patties, and we say $10. And so, but that can be five, it can be whatever you can afford.
Of course. I want to go back to the food bank piece. And the reason I want to go back, a couple of things hit me in our earlier part of today's conversation. We were talking about the opioid crisis, of course, where, you had some experience in working through that, the unhoused population. Do you see on Gabriola much of an unhoused population? Are you finding are you finding that there are, people that are struggling with addictions that are not getting services that need them. What does that environment look like for you?
Um, we do. I mean, everybody who comes are Gabriolans. I know that there's sometimes there's been this thought that people from Nanaimo come over to Gabriola for service, and we don't have enough service here for anything like that.
Yep.
So we do have an unhoused population, and it's quite small. I mean, we have about 5 or 6 people that we know are have no roof. Then there's another cluster of people who are underhoused,
Yeah.
so it's inadequate housing. So they might live in their cars, or they might live, and that's or trailers that are not really fully heated.
Yeah.
And we know that there are people who also live in buildings that are substandard, that might have leaks or full of mold, or and other things. So it's not, I mean, I would say we're probably looking actually it's really hard to tell.
Yeah.
Um, but the people who do come in that we know are struggling with addictions. There's usually concurrent
Yeah.
mental health issues going on. And so our biggest thing is to maintain relationship as long as they continue to come, and encourage as much as possible reconnecting with their healthcare provider, because sometimes it typically is where people might not have been regularly connecting with their healthcare provider, or coping, like adding using a substance where we know that that might activate a mental health condition. And so, we make sure they're fed. We give um, blankets or warm stuff. They're the ones that came to the warming center, and yeah, we just do our best to connect them so that they're supported. And when they're ready, I think, to continue with
Mhm.
their treatment, or continue to, you know, work with the supports that are available to them, then we're ready to take them, to catch them, and then to support them however we can. We'll call Nanaimo, we'll call shelters, we'll call, you know, the health center, the mental health nurse if needed, um, with their permission. But it's only with their permission. It's only when they've have indicated that that's something that they like. So in the meantime, we just, a lot of people call us the RCMP, sometimes come in, say, hey, we haven't seen so and so in a while. Have you seen them? And then, or hey, we're looking for somebody. When you see them, we're really worried about them, so it's a wellness check. And so we really have some, it's a very close community that way, for when we know people are struggling.
Do you have formal outreach in the community? Do you have formal?
Um, we do have, it's Gabriola Outreach, it's not, it's connected to AVI in
Yes.
Nanaimo.
Yeah.
Um, but it's I would say there, we have a lot more volunteers
Yeah.
who are connected to outreach, who are connected to outreach services who work and just kind of are it's a formal informal organization.
Yeah. With regards to those people that you do at from time to time need supports, whether it's at a warming center or for a good meal, do you accept donations as well for clothing, shoes, blankets, those sorts of things? And if so, is there a place where you would want them to be brought to, or what do you notice in your community that you may need in that way, if anything?
Well, sometimes we have gyro, which is Gabriola. It's a recycling
Yeah,
organization. I
sure.
I can't remember, but so when they get donations, they sometimes hold things aside for us and then they call us and we go in Tuesdays and Fridays and pick up some of the things that have been set aside for us. Because we don't again have a lot of space here. If we get inundated with donations, we have nowhere to put them
Yeah, many
um
places.
until we can use them. So we're trying, again, rearranging our space on a regular basis and trying to figure out ways that we can support people. But as quickly as they come, we end up handing them out because that's just the nature of the
Course.
way it goes. We also get, we have somebody who comes in and volunteers to do some laundry. So, and we also have showers here. So a lot of times underhoused, the underhoused or who might not have access to water. So because we're on well systems or rainwater capture, a lot of people might not have an ability to take showers. So we are quite active in the colder months. I think people come in and warm up, and on the hotter months, people come in and cool down. But yeah, we have towels that we provide
Yeah.
and people who come in and help us with laundering the towels. And then if somebody wants to drop their clothes off, that we will at times, do their laundry and bring them back or put them or they just drop the clothes off and say just somebody else can use these. So yeah,
Do you
it's
have
a
a
thing.
social enterprise? I'm thinking of the Gabe Shop, so I'm curious as to whether or not the Gabe Shop is your social enterprise or is that completely separate?
It's the
Operated.
auxiliary. The Gabe shop, no, yeah.
Yeah,
The
okay.
Gabe shop is the auxiliary.
Okay. So it's not connected in any way to you, but I'm
No.
sure that they support in some way when necessary as well. I mean, they're a very
Yeah.
kind community too. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think we don't want to the big thing is we don't want to compete, right? Like
Of
it's
course.
not and so when we already have gyro and we have the Gabe shop and we have one at the swap shop, I think is also another consignments place. So it really it's hopefully the Gabe shop does definitely support us through our Meals on Wheels program.
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about your the most immediate needs that you're seeing. I'm assuming obviously we talked a little bit about sustainable funding. We've talked about food. We know that the food is changing from 150 to 200 or more meals a day. Um, how can how can the community, or do you find that the community is really coming together to do things to help really propel PHC, to help lift whenever there's a lack of anything, if that makes any sense?
Yeah, when we do call outs, we get a great response. And
Okay.
especially like our over the holidays, we do a Christmas feast. And
Yeah.
so we've had so much support, not Christmas, it's Spirit Feast. And
Yeah.
so it's anybody it again came out of people who've lost somebody. So it was those again socially isolated or isolated due to the loss of a loved one. And so we had just a meal for everybody. This year we had 230 people come to the community hall that we fed. And it's donation based, and so we had the Velsons decorated and we had a lot of, there's so much. We've had over 40 or 50 volunteers to help with it. So when we need something like that, the one-offs, then we do really get it. What we are really also struggling with is as a community or is the social isolation for people who are starting to who want to stay in their homes, but might need help with their gardens or might need help with home repair or light housekeeping or meal prep, and who can't afford to hire necessarily. And so, and or respite for caregivers. There's a lot of family duos that have one person who's usually caring for the other person, dementia, Alzheimer's, early onset Alzheimer's. So we're really trying to create a system of support for our respite group as well as our bereavement group. That's a whole area that we've been sort of trying to understand what the needs were originally, how they've shifted, and now where we're at currently. But home support is something that we are finding, the weekly people calling to say, hey, I have a neighbor, hey, I have a friend, I have my mother, I have my husband, and I just can't do this anymore. I need help with food and health and the things that people activities of daily living, even just getting a break, because if when people are starting to go through dementia, there's they're going to fall, or you have to kind of keep an eye on them and make sure they're not wandering off. But if you don't have anybody else to do that, it becomes quite taxing on you as an individual. And then we're also struggling, then you'll be struggling with your own health needs, and where people really want to stay as long as possible on Gabriola. I think ultimately that's my goal as well, is to keep people on island as much as they possibly can,
Absolutely.
if they want to, and to provide service. Now, if and so, because a lot of times funders say, well, it's in Nanaimo. And I'm like, well, yes, the ferry cost to go back
Yeah,
and forth to Nanaimo on a regular basis
yeah.
is $30 if you have a car and a person. And so that adds up, right? That's 150 a week. And not everybody has that.
No, no, that's for sure. And I think that the good news is that, there's slowly after COVID starting to come back to the
Mhm.
resurgence of volunteering, although it is definitely not happening quickly enough. I think people are starting to feel safe enough to do that. So this is really a call to action, I think, for, anyone who really wants to support Gabriola Islanders, to volunteer and really support both you at PHC and the participants themselves.
Yeah.
We're just about done the program. So the first thing I want to do is just do another quick shout out of how people can find you, which I believe is your website, right? Do you want to repeat your
Yeah.
website address?
It's www dot phcgabriola.org.
And your email address is info.
Info at phcgabriola.org.
Brilliant. We're at the favorite part of my show. I have to tell you, I always, first of all, I want to thank you. I honor that you have come to Act 3 to share PHC and the fine work that you and your team are doing. As I said, I had the privilege of being with you not that long ago, and I was absolutely delighted to see the changes and the supports and the real desire to help community. It radiates off of you and your team. Congratulations, you're doing an amazing job. So thank you for that and for sharing it on Act 3. But my question for you as we close out of this show is if you had a piece of wisdom, through your experiences, both as a nurse and your time coming in this work, what might that piece of wisdom look like for you?
I think for me it's about creating connections and relationships,
Yeah.
and that the richness that adds um to to everyone's life. And so how I think I do that as a nurse, how I've done that as a human, how I've done that in my all my roles. It's about the relationships and the connections that you make, that changes people's lives.
Well, every single day you're changing lives. Thank you for the work that you're doing, and thank you for
Thank
being.
you.
It was a pleasure to have you. All right, everybody, that does it for this episode of Act 3 on CHLY 101.7 FM. Do yourself a favor, check them out. Check out PHC on Gabriola. They are extraordinary. And if you've got some time, think about volunteering, whether it's there or anywhere else in any of our fine communities. Please do stay tuned to see our next episode of Act 3 every Monday at 1 o'clock on CHLY 101.7 FM. Thanks very much, everybody. Have a great day.